Quel est ce moment de l'histoire du monde que nous vivons ensemble?
Vuit passemet. Eerset.
Quel est ce moment de l'histoire de l'espèce humaine que nous façonnons très concrètement par chacun de nos actes?
The main solution is so simple that even a small child can understand it.
Rita, what is it that you want to change?
Everything.
Quelle couleur aura-t-on donné collectivement à notre temps dans l'histoire des hommes?
Welcome. We'd like to begin by acknowledging that our work takes place on the unceded, ancestral, and occupied territories of the Squamish, the Musqueam, and the Tsleil-Waututh nations. We know this is only the beginning of our story as we work towards reconciliation. However, as part of this process, we remain committed to engaging with, welcoming, and supporting Indigenous artists, curators, filmmakers, and of course, the Indigenous audiences that we serve. I'm Lucille Pacey. I'm chair of the board of VIFF, and it's my privilege to welcome you to VIFF 2020 this year on behalf of our board of directors. It's been a really interesting 6 months. Who could have predicted that COVID-19 would impact our operations to the extent that they had? And of course, we had no sense at all of how long this would take. So of course, we, like many other not-for-profit boards in the cultural sector, had to make some radical decisions. And they weren't unusual, but they were in many respects forcing us to work more closely with our team of senior staff in the organization. It was our intention that we really support the staff in the work they were doing to make sure that whatever we did in the redesign of the festival and the services that we provided you were equally engaging, equally exciting, and and in many cases, even more personal for you. So VIFF 2020 is different. It will be different. And we hope that you will appreciate the changes that have been made. Those investments have been done in the way that we think we will be able to create some legacy pieces beyond that. But of course, none of this could have happened without the dedication and the motivation of a professional team of staff. And I am so delighted to be able to say that we have been so lucky to have the staff really take this challenge on, turn it into an opportunity, and really see it through. The leadership for this has been through Kyle Faustner. Who would have expected that he took on an interim director role in the fall of 2019 and would have had to take on the challenge of providing the encouragement, the vision for reworking a festival in such a short period of time. But he's done it, and he's done a fabulous job. So it's my pleasure now to introduce you to Kyle Faustner, the interim executive director of VIFF.
Welcome to the 2020 Vancouver International Film Festival press launch. While in its 39th edition, this year's festival represents a very different kind of VIFF. The pandemic's effect on arts and culture, film production, and film festivals worldwide has been profound, and VIFF has had to shift and adapt along with the rest of our industry. I'd like to begin by thanking our remarkable team here, who have shown dedication and creativity in the face of this challenge, and the 2020 festival is a testament to their will. I'd like to thank our partners and sponsors who have embraced our shift online, especially Telefilm Canada, TELUS, and Curated BC, without whom this year's festival simply wouldn't be possible. I'd also like to thank the Government of Canada, Province of British Columbia, and the City of Vancouver for their immense support, and for understanding how significant the impact of COVID-19 has been on the cultural sector. It's been an incredibly challenging year for everyone, and so we're deeply grateful to all our partners for their continued support. In a year when many artists and art organizations aren't able to gather and share their work, VIFF is extremely fortunate to have such a strong program. It takes experience and vision to curate a festival of this size, and so I'd like to take a moment to recognize the folks who so carefully put this program together. Curtis Wolischuk, Associate Director of Programming. Alan Franey, Director of International Programming. Pochu Ao-Young, Program Manager and Senior Programmer. Tom Charity, International Programming Consultant and Year-Round Programmer. Tammy Bannister, Modes and Canadian Film Programmer. Sandy Gao, International Shorts Programmer. Amanda Strong, Canadian Film Programmer. Shelley Kraser, Gateway Programmer. Maggie Lee, Gateway Programmer. Rylan Friday, Catalyst Programmer. Tristan Greyeyes, Programming Consultant. Francis Bergen, VIFF Talks and Totally Indie Day Programmer. Ken Tsui, Creative Engagement and Live Programmer. Rob Calder, VIFF AMP Curator. Tony Scudlieri, VIFF AMP Curator. Brian Seth Hurst, VIFF Immersed Curator. Caitlin Burns, VIFF Immersed Curator. Renee Pinnell, Curator of the VIFF Immersed Volumetric Market. I'd like to welcome Curtis Wolischuk, our Associate Director of Programming, to go over the Canadian program details.
I'm joined by Tammy Bannister, VIFF Programmer and Modes Curator, and Rylan Friday, the Programmer for our Catalyst Mentorship Program. We're very excited to share more details on the Canadian program that you'll see at this year's VIFF. We also want to acknowledge the key contributions by other members of the Canadian programming team, including Melanie Lemaire, Amanda Strong, and Tristan Greyeyes. This year's program has truly been a collaborative effort. It's a slightly more streamlined Canadian program this year than in recent ones, but we feel like this has really allowed us to bring a greater focus to the stories and storytellers that we are showcasing for you. Of the 24 Canadian feature films this year, 14 of those are by female creators, and 11 come courtesy of BIPOC filmmakers. Our commitment to BC filmmakers remains as strong as ever. We'll have the world premieres of 5 narrative British Columbia features. The first 4 of those are Brother I Cry by Jesse Anthony, Chained by Titus Heckel, The Curse of Willow Song by Karen Lamb, and Fucking Idiots by David Milchard. The 5th of those we'll get to in a while, but first of all, let's just go over some of the other world premieres we have hailing from other parts of the country. Those include events transpiring before, during, and after a high school basketball game, directed by Ted Stenson, Flowers of the Field, directed by Andrew Stanley, and Pink Lake by Emily Gann and Daniel Schachter. This year's festival will also feature work by filmmakers familiar and perhaps even infamous to VIFF audiences. On the latter count, Bruce the Bruce will screen Saint Narcisse at our festival. It'll be the North American premiere after the film screens in Venice. We'll also have Happy Place by director Helen Shaver. That's her first narrative feature film. Achilles' Escape by Charles Officer. And My Salinger Year by Philippe Falardeau. My Salinger Year, of course, opened the Berlinale earlier this year. Other films that arrive at VIFF, having already enjoyed success at other festivals, include Hot Docs Award winners First We Eat, directed by Suzanne Crocker, and Prayer for a Lost Mitten, directed by Jean-Francois Lesage. And finally, arriving at VIFF, having already taken a bow at TIFF, The New Corporation, the unfortunately necessary sequel by Joel Bakken and Jennifer Abbott, Beans by Tracy Deer, and Inconvenient Indian by Michelle Latimer. Michelle's film is, of course, based on Thomas King's renowned book. We're also excited to highlight another Indigenous writer-poet, Josephine Bacon, with the documentary Call Me Human, directed by Kim Obum-Sawin. To tell us more about other nonfiction Canadian work screening at this year's festival is Tammy Bannister.
Thanks, Curtis. Yes, we have a bounty of nonfiction work for VIFF audiences this year, starting with the world premiere of The Magnitude of All Things. Acclaimed documentarian Jennifer Abbott returns to the spotlight with not one, but two powerhouse docs. As Curtis mentioned, she's also the co-director of The New Corporation. Magnitude of All Things is a local production, and Abbott finds a fresh take on our climate crisis, perhaps the most visceral, reasoned call to action for humanity since An Inconvenient Truth. VIFF also presents the world premiere of No Visible Trauma. Born and raised in Calgary, co-directors Marc Serpa-Francoeur and Robinder Upal spent 5 years meticulously dissecting 3 heavily reported police incidents that went terribly wrong. Also hailing from Alberta, John Ware Reclaimed is about a Black Albertan pioneer. Initially developed as a stage play, now with the NFB, writer-director Cheryl Fogo digs deep into scant archives, traces Indigenous oral history, and even excavates the ranch that Ware owned to turn up any clue about who Ware really was. Another important doc to note is No Ordinary Man. Up-and-coming directors Ainsling Ching Yi and Chase Joint dig into a gender narrative that rightly belongs to the LGBTQ+ community and has unfortunately been mishandled by the mainstream for far too long. All of these documentaries will be in competition for Best Canadian Documentary, which is but one of the many awards on offer at VIFF for Canadian creators. We'd like to thank all of our sponsors and partners who've supported VIFF in offering a robust awards slate once again this year.
2 more features to mention are Violation by Madeline Sims-Fewer and Dusty Mancinelli, and Nadia Butterfly by Pascal Plante. These are filmmakers who first introduced themselves to VIFF audiences with their short films. Consequently, we're very excited to present the VIFF short form presented by TELUS Story Hive, which will be not only a showcase of short films, but also a platform for discussion about the different methodologies that created these works. 2 of the filmmakers showcased in the short form this year will be Keely Wu and Nisha Platzer, both of whom are graduates of our VIFF Catalyst mentorship program. To tell us more about Catalyst, here's Rylan Friday.
This year, we have invited 15 emerging local filmmakers to experience the best in contemporary cinema and to see the inner workings of one of North America's largest film festivals. The VIFF Catalyst mentorship program is designed to open doors and eliminate barriers for up-and-coming filmmakers, offering opportunities to those who come from under and misrepresented communities in the film industry and beyond. These emerging filmmakers are Black, Indigenous, and people of color, and people across spectrums of gender, sexuality, and abilities. Our diverse group of participants will develop a network of peers and one-on-one mentorship sessions from esteemed filmmakers from Vancouver as part of their exclusive tailored festival experience. The mentorship program will offer 8 flagship sessions regarding ethics in filmmaking, directing and producing roundtables, distribution, film financing, and gear rentals. This program is presented by TELUS Story Hive and supported by the RBC Foundation.
Thanks, Rylan. And now we go to Ken Soy to talk more about the talks and events people can look forward to at this year's festival.
Hi, my name is Ken Soy, Director of Creative Engagement and Live Programming here at the Vancouver International Film Festival. With an unprecedented year of how we engage with BC creators and global talent, we're proud to put together a series of digital talks, conferencing, and marketplace programming that reflects the resiliency of the industry and enlivens the festival discourse. I want to start by introducing Ellen Hadley, Communications Manager for the department, who will take us through the talks we have in store this year.
We're excited to share VIFF's 2020 virtual talk series with you. Programmed by Fran Bergen, these sessions range from one-on-one conversations to dynamic panel discussions, featuring the key creators behind some of the most critically acclaimed films and TV series. Here are just a few highlights from this year's talks program. First up, we have an in-conversation with Charlie Kaufman, an Academy Award-winning screenwriter whose new film, I'm Thinking of Ending Things, adapted from Ian Reid's critically acclaimed debut novel, will stream worldwide on Netflix on September 4th. The film tackles our assumption about identity and relationships in Kaufman's signature surrealistic style. Next up, our Creating Satirical Comedies session guests have two very unique and audaciously funny series. Emmy-nominated Tony McNamara's The Great, featuring Elle Fanning, and Peabody Award-winning Alina Smith's Dickinson, featuring Haley Steinfeld. Both shows are wild and weird, irreverent, satirical, and bitingly funny. This one's for writers and fans alike. Finally, in our Talks program highlights, we're excited to announce a case study of HBO's critically acclaimed series Watchmen. We'll be going behind the scenes of episode 106, This Extraordinary Being, with our two Emmy-nominated guests, cinematographer Greg Middleton and director Stephen Williams, as they provide an insider's view of one of the year's most exciting hours of television. And now to one of our favorite and long-running programs, Totally Indie Day, a day of online panels dedicated to the next generation of filmmakers. The program features experienced industry professionals and rising new talents alike. They'll share stories, offer insights, and pass on tips. Session highlights include a case study of Nadia Butterfly. Join us for a fascinating behind-the-scenes look at the making of the film with the director, producer, cinematographer, and production designer. Focus on debut docs with Garrett Bradley and Michelle Latimer. Time won Sundance 2020's Directing Award for a US documentary, An Inconvenient Indian is inspired by the best-selling book of the same title, written by leading Indigenous Canadian intellectual and storyteller Thomas King. The Indie Spirit session features three of our favorite directors, Eliza Hittman, Chris Ray, and Amy Seitzman. And last but not least, join us for our docu-fiction session with directors Bill and Turner Ross, who will take us behind the scenes of the making of the hybrid doc Bloody Nose, Empty Pockets, this year's sleeper hit.
In addition to talks and Totally Indie Day, we'll also be hosting a series of VIFF Labs. Labs are designed to transcend hierarchies and foster dialogue between BC creators and established global talent, sharing knowledge through conversations, workshops, and case studies. Labs this year include Ellen Curris, cinematographer of films such as The Eternal Sunshine of a Spotless Mind, Jennifer Abbott, the prolific impact documentary filmmaker with 2 films at the 2020 festival, Tyler Hagen, producer of last year's The Body Remembers When the World Broke Open, Dr. Karen Perlman, leading expert in film editing and author of Cutting Rhythms, and Eiling Chin Yi and Chase Joint, directors of the phenomenal hybrid documentary No Ordinary Man, playing at VIFF this year. Next up, we have Lydia Hall, department producer, who will be telling us a little bit more about VIFF Amp, our summit for music and film.
In a year where live music is not a possible stream of revenue for artists, VIFF Amp and our Talent Accelerator program is more relevant than ever. The summit is dedicated to music and film that empowers musicians to expand their expertise to include music supervision, composing, and sync placements for film, television, and advertising. BC artists will have the opportunity to engage with world-class talent, including Terrence Blanchard, Nora Felder, and Morgan Rhodes. With over 15 speakers, this is only to name a few. We are also excited to be collaborating with local organizations to ensure equal representation, including a collaborative panel with a producer's lounge who are dedicated to elevating female, non-binary identifying and underrepresented BC music producers. We will also be featuring BC artists at the summit through digital performances through our Sound Off and AMP Summit showcases.
We also have the VIFF Immersed exhibition, where guests will have a chance to jump into 12 VR experiences remotely through a host of different ways. We'll be awarding some of the best in VR animation, live action, and documentary, and featuring an exciting roster of premieres from BC creators. While this is just a taste of the programming that we have for VIFF 2020, we have a few more exciting developments to share with you in the coming weeks. So keep up to date at VIFF.org, and we hope to see you at some of these exciting digital events. And now I'd like to welcome Alan and Pochu, who will go over the International Film Program.
This is obviously an extraordinary year, and for us programming feature films, it's been quite a journey. We've been able to put together a program that reflects the times in ways we hadn't anticipated. In fact, speaking not just for the few of us who are on staff, but our larger group of about 24 people who view films for us, we also found that films had special relevance. For example, we saw a film early in the year called My Voice Will Be With You about healthcare innovations in Brussels. Specifically, it's about the use of hypnosis or imaginative techniques to help people get through surgery. Not long after that, we saw a film called I Am Not a Hero, which is in fact the first documentary we're aware of about COVID-19 and what healthcare workers have faced in hospitals. That's also a film from Brussels, Belgium. So that was extraordinary. Further impact films that we have that are very relevant. There's a documentary about the World Economic Summit in Davos, Switzerland every year, where you have leading politicians and businessmen from around the world talking. And the question as you watch it is, how will COVID change the world and how governments stand together against a common threat? Also amazingly timed was Women in Blue, which is a film about the police force in Minneapolis. We saw it the very day after the George Floyd tragedy and aftermath. Another film very relevant for these times is called The Hidden Life of Trees, which is based on Peter Wohleben's best-selling book about the health of forests. And he travels from European forests to the Pacific Northwest. And while in BC, he's in the company of David Suzuki. So we're delighted that Peter Wohleben will be able to join us in conversation. In the World Cinema Program, we have the film that won the top prize in Berlin called There Is No Evil, Mohammad Rasullev's film from Iran. We have Last and First Men from Iceland, where the late Icelandic film composer Jóhann Jóhannsson imagines a philosophical take on life from a distant future, looking back at our age of extinction, and featuring Tilda Swinton. We have Angela Merkel, Anatomy of a Crisis, a dramatic feature from Germany, focusing on Angela Merkel's decision process in the refugee crisis. And a completely different kind of film from the United States, Black Bear, which is a wonderfully innovative film by Lawrence Michael Levine, which stars Aubrey Plaza, Christopher Abbott, and Sarah Gadon, all three of whom we hope to involve in a discussion on acting. Now, Pochu, why don't you take us through some of the Gateway and music, art, and dance films?
Thanks, Alan. Our Gateway series this year will present 11 new films from East Asia. And in keeping with the series tradition of promoting emerging talents, 7 of these films will be first features by young filmmakers. And 3 of them will be by female directors from Hong Kong, Korea, and Taiwan. And, you know, among one of them is called My Prince Edward by Norris Wong. And it's won the Taipei Golden Horse Award last year, and also at this year's Hong Kong Film Award for Best New Director Prize. And the film, it's about the quiet yearnings of a young woman for independence just when she was about to get married. As for the other films, I'll briefly mention a few. From China, we have a period piece set in Shanghai, set in a dance hall in Shanghai against the backdrop of communist China takeover, and it's called Shanghai Swings. And from South Korea, we have an animated thriller about the extreme measures a woman will take to look drop dead gorgeous, and pun fully intended. And from Japan, a bittersweet family drama adapted from an autobiographical online manga called My Life Turned Upside Down. My Dad is an Alcoholic. And I guess the title says it all. And in our Math series this year, we are delighted to be presenting 3 films on 3 major artists, each representing a different era. And there's My Rembrandt, which explains why the work of this Dutch master is so extraordinary and still so revered to this day. And there's Marcel Duchamp, The Art of the Possible, which examines the range and scope of his large body of work beyond the urinal that he's famous for. And finally, there's one on Frida Kahlo, an intimate portrait of her as an artist, and also shows how some of her paintings are inspired by the tragedies in her personal life. So for the art lovers among us, these films are not to be missed. And now for those who wish to experience nature and adventure in the great outdoors while indoors, we have programmed a number of films with that in mind. And there is Super Frenchy about Matthias Gerard, a daredevil-based jumper on skis. And then there's Race to Alaska, about a high-endurance boat race from Port Townsend to Alaska. And you will see a lot of high wire acts in the treacherous water along the BC coast. And then there's Into the Storm, a hoop stream-like documentary set in Chile about the rise of a young surfer from poverty to championship. And this film also features some stunning underwater cinematography. Now back to Alan to tell you something about our special presentations this year.
Okay. So this year, amongst the films we have from bigger name directors and cast members are, for example, from Denmark, Thomas Vinterberg's Another Round, starring Mads Mikkelsen. From the UK and Canada, Viggo Mortensen's dramatic debut, Falling, in which he stars alongside Lance Henriksen and Laura Linney. From the UK, Florian Zeller's The Father, starring Anthony Hopkins, Olivia Colman, and Olivia Williams. From Germany, Christian Petzold's Undine, which stars Paula Beer and Franz Rosowski. Paula Beer won the Best Actress Award in Berlin this year. From France, Françoise Ozon's Summer of '85, a story of friendship and love between two teenage boys at a seaside resort in Normandy in the mid-1980s.
In addition to our strong online program, we're pleased to confirm that we will have select in-cinema screenings this year. After nearly 4 years of planning and 6 months of construction, I'm excited to announce that the VIFF Center and Van City Theater will finally be completed in time for opening night. Featuring a beautifully revitalized atrium, a brand new 41-seat studio theater, a dedicated education suite, and a new media lab, our new home will allow us to dramatically expand our education, experiential, and digital media programming. And now it's my pleasure to announce the opening film for this year's festival. When approaching this, we wanted to find a unique way to kick things off, despite in-cinema audiences being limited to 50 people. We wanted to remind people of the power of cinema to create a communal experience. That's why we've decided to open this year's festival, not in one packed theater, but in at least a dozen art house cinemas across British Columbia. On September 24th, all these theaters will play our opening film at the same time, free of charge. We're very fortunate to have found the perfect film to suit this occasion, Loretta Todd's Monkey Beach. This beautiful adaptation of Eden Robinson's novel, filmed near Kitimat Village, is a captivating tale of Indigenous empowerment. We couldn't be happier to share this film on our opening night. That concludes the VIFF 2020 press launch. We're very proud and excited for this year's festival. I'd like to thank our board of directors, our staff, and our volunteers for making all of this possible. And thank you very much for watching. We'll see you in theaters very soon.